Welcome to our Appalachian Diabetes Coalition virtual office hours. We have today Kristin Brandenburg, and she's the Health Promotion Specialist with the Kentucky River District Health Department and chair of the Lee County Diabetes Coalition. And she's worked in healthcare on both the education and clinic sides for over 16 years. And she lives in, is it Beattyville or Beattyville?
Beattyville. You had it right the first time.
Beattyville, Kentucky, yes. I've been there several times. So I love it there. I just could never pronounce it.
You're not alone.
Right. So she's lived there all her life. Outside of the 7 years while she was attending college. She's been married to her husband for 12 years, and they have 2 daughters. And today she's going to be talking about creating a diabetes support group from the ground up. And I'm really excited to hear you, Kristin, and all the great work you guys are doing there in Lee County.
Good deal.
All right. I'll just turn it over to you.
All right. Sounds good. Well, if anybody on here that knows me knows I'm a talker. So I've got a lot of information that I want to give you all and go through kind of the last year of what we've been through with this diabetes support group. Sheila did a really good job in introducing me with all the information I gave her, but this is just a quick little about me slide. Down there in the bottom right-hand corner, that's my family, my husband, and my 2 girls. My oldest, she's 21, and she's a senior at Moorhead, planning to go into physical therapy. So that's our next step. So we were very in debt right now with her. My youngest is a freshman in high school. She is very sports-oriented. She's a 3-sport child, so she keeps us in a gym or on a ball field all the time. You can see her playing ball over there in the top corner. That is my work team here at the health department. And I have to say, I'm biased because I work with them every day, but I really cannot think of a better group of ladies to work with. They're awesome. My little dog in the bottom, you can see I like to travel. The beach is my happy place, and I love to read. And then there's a couple of quotes that I kind of try to do my daily life by: living with intent, and not out of habit, being very intentional with the things that we do every day. So like I said, got a lot of information that I'm going to give you all over the next little bit. So we'll get started. Before I talk about the actual diabetes support group and how it started, I wanted to give you a little background on the actual Lee County Diabetes Coalition. So we were established in 2007. At that time, I was working for a company called AHEC, which was Area Health Education Center. So I was a part of the coalition. I was actually part of the grant writing that got the coalition started. So I was there in the beginning. And then the company that I worked for was grant-based. I pulled the short straw, and so that's when I went to the clinical side of things. So I had a 7-year stint that I worked in a family practice, and so I got that experience on the clinical side of things, especially people that were diabetics. That kind of has come back into my position now. I joined the Kentucky River District Health Department in February of 2002. And one of the stipulations on when I was hired on is that 20% of my time was going to be allocated towards diabetes, being a support to our current diabetes system, and then of course getting within these coalitions. So made sense. I rejoined the coalition in June of 2002. The coalition had been kind of stagnant for the last couple of years just due to COVID. I mean, nobody was doing anything in person. So there wasn't a lot going on. And, I was new and I came in and I was gung-ho and I was ready to go. So it just kind of fell into my lap. And in August of 22, they kind of handed it over to me and made me as chair of the coalition. When we sat and talked about where we wanted to go with the coalition, from that point on, we wanted to take a more direct approach, a more individualized approach with those people in our community that were pre-diabetic, that had diabetes, that had family members that were diabetic, we can support them on a smaller level. They were doing a lot of bigger events and those type of things in the community, but sat back and thought about how are we truly impacting these people that are living with diabetes. So that's kind of how our support group came about. That's was our first initiative, that we wanted to start this support group in our community, and meet once a month with them. So that's how everything kind of got started. We didn't have any type of curriculum. We didn't have anything that we went by. It was kind of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing, and we'll figure it out as we go. So we had our very first support group in August of last year. There's a few of our coalition members, but we had to get people there. So we needed to target those people with diabetes and those people with family members. So we went to your basic run-of-the-mill things from, we made flyers, and we posted flyers all around our community. I think I put a flyer on anything with a piece of glass on it, all the ice machines, pop machines, anywhere that had a bulletin board, all of our restaurants, anywhere that I could possibly find to try to get the word out via that way. Fortunately, where I'm with the Kentucky River District Health Department, we have a very active social media. So those were posted to our social media pages. The Diabetes Coalition has their own Facebook group that I run now. And so we were able to post on there. We placed ads in newspapers. And the extension office actually has a one-call system here. So, and I have people on the coalition from the extension office. So what they did was they kind of compiled the list of people that had come to their programming that were adults, and kind of sent out this mass one call to everybody and said, hey, are you living with diabetes? Do you have a family member with diabetes? Call us, register. We want to get you as part of this support group. And so that reached a lot of people at the time. Of course, we were still like, is anybody going to show up? And that brings me probably to the next biggest point that I could say on the startup of this is community partners are the key. I'm a person that I'm really bad for. I try to take it all on my own and I want to do it all myself, but you have to utilize those people that are around you, especially ones that are open and willing, and asking, do you want to be involved in this? And I'm very fortunate that with our Diabetes Coalition, we have a lot of community partners that are involved. Some that we have right now, of course, the extension office, which is a huge part. We actually use their facility to do our support groups in each month. We go back and forth with the food. They use some benefits they have to kind of offset some of the cost with the food that we provide for the participants. The family resource centers and the youth service centers in our school system, they have always been on the coalition, but here just recently have they started coming to our groups or to our coalition meetings. And so they're getting more involved now. Of course, the health department kind of goes hand in hand. I'm not the only one with the health department. Our county coordinator comes to the meetings. If you were on here a little bit earlier, I talked about Claudia, who's here on the call. She is registered dietitian, and she is a diabetic specialist. And it's been fantastic to have her, because she knows a whole lot more on the subject than me and probably the rest of the coalition do. So there's a lot of times we'll be sitting in a meetings and we think this might be a good idea, but then we kind of look at Claudia and be like, what do you think? So she kind of gives us that expert advice on where we're going and what we should and what we shouldn't do. And then another big key partner that I have is Markham and Wallace Hospital. They're through Mercy Health and they're based in Irvin, but their community outreach coordinator, one of her targeted counties is Lee County. So she is very involved in the outreach and very involved in that. And especially financially, they provide a lot. You can actually see here on this slide from our first meeting that, the Mercy Health emblem. What we did at our first support group meeting was we prepared this meal, and they got to watch the food being prepared, how to cook it and what to do, and the tips and tricks on it. And then Mercy Health actually provided a take-home meal kit. So they got to watch it be cooked, and then they got to eat the meal, and then they got to take it home with them, all the supplies that they needed to make this diabetic-friendly meal at home. These are some pictures from it. As you can see, we had a great crowd. We actually had 18 people show up for our first group. So we were flying high after that first group. You know, we've got these people, we've reeled them in, but we wanted to make sure we can continue to appeal to them to get them to come to the classes. So in September, in each coalition meeting, we kind of decided what we were going to do for the next meeting. So we decided right then and there that food pulls people in. If you tell somebody I'm going to feed you and I'm going to give you something, that's an incentive to get people there, regardless of what you're doing, whether it's a support group or any other event that you have going on. And we've learned that very clearly, being at the health department and a lot of the events that we put on, that entices people to come and show up. And then hopefully what you provide to them gets them to continue to come. So we decided we were going to do some sort of a diabetic recipe for them. And so then became these recipe cards, and you can see them in the top corner. So what we started doing, I kind of took the recipes that we had and, you know, give your ingredients, directions, and pictures, but it also has the nutritional value on those, and specifically the things that are very important for diabetics, what their servings are, the amount of carbs that's in the servings, the sugars, the proteins, all those things that are really important for their balance on what they're supposed to eat each day. I laminated them, put a hole punch in them, and then just had some of the little key rings that we bought, and they got those. And so they get those each month at the support group for the food that we fix. So they get a new recipe card and they can put it on their key ring, and then they have all those diabetic friendly recipes that are put together for them each month. So we did diabetic medications, and like I said before, community partners are key. So a pharmacist came from Markham and Wallace Hospital, and she sat and she talked with the participants about all the different medications, because there's a lot of medical jargon that these people don't understand. And most of the time when you go to your primary care, they're so busy that they don't have time to sit down and explain to you the medications that they're giving to you, what they're doing to your body, what they're for, why am I on 2 different kinds, all that. So she kind of cleared all that up for everybody. And then they got to ask different questions about their medicines. And we gave them they got the Sharps containers and some pill packs as well. We also had 2 ladies that came, one from Kentucky Net, I think that's how you pronounce it, but she works with people that are in insurance gaps. And so a lot of our participants are, I would say, average 50 and over. So a lot of retired people. And so a lot of them are on Medicare. But in our area, we also live in an area that we are in a very impoverished area. About 50% of the population here are under the poverty line. So they would qualify for like Medicaid, but a lot of them don't realize that there's this thing called dual eligibility. So they could have Medicare, but then they could pick up Medicaid to possibly get their medicines and their health care for free. So she came and talked to them about that. And then we also had a lady from Kentucky Home Place, which is a program that is based off of your financial situation, but she helps people to get the medication cost lowered or free. And I think everybody here is very familiar with diabetic medications and how crazy expensive that they are for people. So she works with them to make them reasonable so that they can be compliant with their medications and get their diabetes under control. So that's what we did there. It was a lot of information, but I feel like they learned a lot from that night. In October, we did a Let's Get Moving meeting. The extension office already implements a program called Bingo Size. And that's something we're trained here at the health department, but we're not recreating the wheel. So that's something they do. So we did that. So she kind of improvised that. And we did with our food, we had like a hummus recipe, and Mercy did just like a little small take-home bag for them to make the hummus as well. And as you can see, they were up, and she just showed them just different basic moves they could do that were very simple, that were not overwhelming. We didn't ask them to go and run a lap around the building, but it got them up and it got them moving and got their heart rate up. But it was very simple things that they could do just sometimes from their chair while they're watching TV, and they played bingo with it. So it made it fun. And then we had a bunch of door prizes and stuff that were donated that they won, that if they, of course, hit bingo. So we got to Thanksgiving and we started thinking about this time of year is a really hard time of the year that for food, just for food in general. It's a hard time of year to eat healthy for anybody, let alone, a diabetic. And so when we were thinking of Thanksgiving, we thought we wanted to fix a good hearty meal for them. So we did a whole wheat chicken pot pie, a salad that had a homemade salad dressing, which was really, really good. And then some peanut butter cookies for our meal. And of course, they got the recipes for that. So Thanksgiving is a holiday, and we wanted to treat it as such at our meeting. So they had the food, but then we played Diabetic Jeopardy, because the last few months, and you can tell from just what I've told you that they learned at those meetings, there was a lot of information given to them all at once. So we came up with Diabetic Jeopardy and did the different categories. It wasn't, they didn't team up or anything. It was just more of a refresher course on all the stuff that we had talked about to this point, to see what they had retained. The final Jeopardy was actually them just going around the room and saying one thing that they've learned since they've been coming to the support group. And that's actually my oldest. She needed a community service project for one of her classes, so she came in and actually helped out that night as well. Again, we are at Christmas, and so we wanted to celebrate. Again, it's cold, so we thought, what would be better than a good soup? So we did a vegetable soup. It was with, we did ground chicken instead of burger, and a lot of, low sodium, those type of things, but it still tasted good. I do remember one participant saying, if it just had a little more salt, it would be better. But they've got to be honest about things. Claudia did a little lesson on just the foods and stuff at the holidays, just talking to them about what to eat, what to kind of steer clear from, those type of things. The extension office is awesome about decorating. So we had the fire going and everything was decorated all pretty there for them as well. We did our activity for the night was we had a parfait bar. So on top of the soup, they got to make their own parfaits, and you can see the signs down through there. They actually list the carbs and the amount that's in servings there. So we had all the different servings already fixed out for them. So they knew in real time what they were fixing when they were putting it together themselves, how many carbs that they were actually putting into their bowl, and they got to eat those. We did a diabetic checklist just to kind of keep them in check based on some of the stuff that Claudia had talked about. Just the simple things of, is my A1C under 7? Am I checking my sugar twice a day? Am I compliant with my medicines? Am I doing my follow-ups to my doctor? Just to kind of keep them in check on the things that they should just be doing in general to keep their diabetes under control. Bottom right corner, you can see we had a craft. We made strawberry Santas, and those were just strawberries, fat-free Cool Whip, and 0 sugar chocolate chips. So it gave them a hands-on thing to do, but it was also something that we wanted to give them because it's the holidays. Some of them have kids, some of them have grandkids. So it's something that they could take home with them and do with their families, but it was still safe for them as a diabetic to participate in. That is me in the bottom left corner, and I jumped out. Nobody knew, and I was dressed up as a giant Christmas tree because, like I said,
that was my next question.
Yeah,
who is that in the
that's me
corner?
That's me. I'm the one that if you, I rarely say no, and my my thought process behind it is my whole thought with this support group is obviously that I want them to learn things about their diabetes to manage them, but I want them to look forward to coming to it, and I want them to laugh, and I want us to have a good time. And if you leave and you've learned something, then we've done something. But I like to make things fun, so I jumped out in the Christmas tree, and we had gifts for them. Each one of them got a gift. We wrapped and did the bows and whole 9 yards, but it was one of the Carb King books for them to have and keep. And so it was a gift, but it was still something that they could utilize, in their everyday life. So that was a good one. That was a fun night. So in January, we did healthy start to a new year, because everybody's making goals and all that stuff. And after conversation, Markham and Wallace actually offered to do free A1C checks. And so they brought the machine, just the finger stick with the 5-minute read on it. We did the chicken Caesar salad wraps and then a power stack mix. And then I did a little lesson on goal setting. You can see that's all of our participants getting their A1C check. So they knew that night, based on that, what their A1C was. And then my goal setting presentation we did. This was our 6-month mark. So we did a 6-month evaluation that they received, that had a bunch of questions on it. And it was for us to kind of evaluate where we're at. We've done this for 6 months. So let's go to them and find out what is working, what is not working. So we compiled all that, and the extension office reached out, and they wanted to do a success story on our diabetes support group. So it was something that went out to all the different extension offices, and they used some of the stuff that we had done, but they also used statistics that came from these evaluations that we did. Those are in the bottom there, and they're a little hard to see. But the biggest one for me is the first one. It said 100% felt that the classes helped them in managing their diabetes. If I had only asked one question to tell me that everybody that was there that night felt that it was helping them in some way, shape, or form, we were doing something right. 75% of them felt confident that they were keeping their diabetes under control. 60% said that their A1C had improved. 10% said it stayed the same. And then for those whose A1C had improved, and now before I give you these numbers, they are drastic, but this is what they wrote down. One stated that they went from a 9 to a 5.8, and one said they went from a 7 to a 5.9. Now, realistically, especially coming from the clinical side of things, I know that is a massive drop in your A1C, and it's actually putting these people in for the pre-diabetic range rather than even a diabetic range. So I'm assuming maybe it was someone that was a newly diagnosed diabetic when they first started, and so they've kind of got things under control, or maybe someone that was non-compliant for a while and is finally kind of getting on the right track. But that's what they said. So we used the numbers and we took them at good faith, and of course, it looks good for us as well. Another thing that we put into the evaluation was the different foods that we had provided them. Did you make the meal kit? Have you made this recipe? And one thing that we gathered from here was the easier the recipe, the more apt people were to make it. So when the chicken pot pie was great, but it was a lot of work. And where we live in a small town, we're very limited on our groceries here. You can't find a whole lot of zero sugar stuff and the low carb stuff. So I started learning that maybe I don't need to make these big elaborate meals for them. Maybe I need to be more practical in what we're fixing for them, because I don't want them just to eat it there. I want them to take this home and take these recipe homes and make them in their own real life. So that was a turning point for us on the food. And you'll see that over these next few slides, that things we kind of dumbed it down and got a little bit simpler. And through the recipes, there were certain things, and I'll touch on those too, but there were certain things that the recipe called for and I couldn't find available. So we improvised and we told them that, one of them was like whole wheat buns, and I couldn't find whole wheat buns in either our 2 grocery stores that we have. So I bought whole wheat bread and I made toast out of it. So showing them that, you'd have to follow it exactly for it to still be a healthy meal, a healthy alternative for you to make. So in February is Mental Health Awareness Month in general. So I do a lot with my other side of my job with the MCH program on mental health. And we really wanted to do a lesson on that because we talk all the time about take your medicine and taking care of your body and the physical side. But being a diabetic is mentally taxing. I think they had said that you make hundreds of decisions a day just because you're a diabetic that other people don't. So we really wanted to focus on that. We did the strawberry spinach salad. And then in the top right corner, you can see we did an overnight oats because one of the things in the evaluation they said was that they wanted more things with breakfast. So we did an overnight oat station and they got to pick what they wanted and they got sent home with kind of an overview of how to make it. We bought the little mason jars and they got to make it and take it home and eat it for breakfast the next morning. There's some pictures of them making their notes and me giving my lesson on mental health and just how to kind of just basic mental health information, but also things that were geared towards them as well, to know that taking care of your mind is just as important as taking care of your body. There was a line, I think, drawn with the overnight oats when they came back the next time. Someone was like, "Ew, I don't like it. It's gross." And some people really liked it and they've implemented it into their daily routines or weekly routines with what they eat for breakfast. Here's a few more pictures. That Markham and Wallace had donated a bag, like a goodie bag with things in it. And it was funny because the gentleman that ended up winning, we just put everybody's name in a basket and drew him out. It was actually his first time coming to the support group. So you can see on his face, he was very surprised, but he was very appreciative of it as well. In March, we did foot care. Feet for people with diabetes is just different. I mean, people that are diabetic, they even have to clip their toenails differently than a normal person does. So we focused on that. We did these zucchini boats, which were fantastic. I make these at home in the air fryer quite often. So I've gotten some good recipes from this as well. We gave them a nice little lotion. And then we had Sandra Noble. She is a nurse practitioner. She took the time out of her evening and she came and talked to them about all the things about keeping your feet healthy, and talked to them about foot care that they can do at home, things that they can look for on a foot exam. Talked about the neuropathy side of things that can go along with diabetes. And then they just kind of asked questions, and it was kind of off subject, but she was there and she was, clinical questions that we really couldn't answer. So she was there to answer for them. Now this slide, and you're probably wondering what in the world. Sam's favorite dessert, the infamous rubber brownie. And I'm sure Claudia is laughing right now, even though she is on mute. We made diabetic friendly brownies this night, and they were not a success. I will say that the recipes that we pull, I do not have the time, and like most people don't, to try all these recipes before we make them. So these recipes are made for the first time the night of the diabetes support group. We've been very fortunate that up until this point, everything has been edible, at least. And these were, I don't want to say that they weren't edible, but they were not good. Sam is one of my participants that I think he might have missed one meeting, and he does not fall short of giving me a hard time at any given time that something goes wrong. And so he dimed these the infamous rubber brownies because he said they looked like rubber and they tasted like what he thinks rubber would taste like. I included this slide because not everything is going to go perfect. Not everything is going to go the way that you want it to go. And you're going to mess up. Things are not going to work out. But in turn, if we sit and we laugh about it and we can make jokes about it and we learn from it, then that's all that matters. So you don't have to be perfect in everything that you do. Things can mess up and you can serve them a rubber brownie, and I assure you, they're going to come back the next time again. So that's why I wanted to include that in there. He literally still gives me a hard time over those brownies. In April, it was starting to get warm. People were starting to garden. So we've really pushed these people to eat healthy, but we want them to be able to improvise this at home and make their own healthy foods. And that goes with growing a garden. So we did a raised bed and a windowsill gardening lesson, but we wanted to make it to where it was feasible for something that they could do. We did a taco salad and a lemon cake, which were both really good until somebody found out that it was turkey burger instead of real burger and said it would have been better with real burger. They wouldn't have known the difference if they didn't have the recipe card.
Kristin,
Yeah.
we have a question in the chat box.
Yes.
They want to know, someone wants to know where you get the recipes from. What main resource do you use?
Most of mine come from the Diabetic Hub. Just the website, the Diabetic Hub. I have it saved on my computer, and I will actually send it to you. I can't think of the actual address, but it's called the Diabetic Hub is what I use. And I think 99% of my recipes have come from there because it's fantastic because it gives you the picture. It gives you all the nutritional, everything that you need is right there. And you know that it is a diabetic approved recipe. So it kind of takes out the thought process for me, but I'll get that to you. And if I can find it before we leave, I can maybe drop it in the chat box once I can pull my internet back up, but I'll get fantastic.
And what I'll do is I'll have a copy of your slides and things. When the recording link becomes available, I'll just send an email out, and then I can have that Diabetic Hub recipe link if you just want to send it to me when you get a free minute. Yeah. And anything else that might be a good resource. And we can take our time, we can keep going. And if there's any other questions, just drop them in the chat box or raise your hand or something, and we'll get to you. And I know I've got a couple comments too, and Kristin, we'll just let you keep going. We've got 30 more minutes. Okay, good.
I know I had a lot, so.
We put it in the chat box for you.
Okay.
So we had from the extension office, guy's name is Ted. I call him the agricultural guru. So he did the lesson on the raised beds. The extension office actually has a bunch. It's a huge project they do, and they have let us kind of join in on that, on the raised bed projects. So you can see some of our participants actually got to plant some things, and they learned how to make those themselves. And then we talked about windowsill gardening, and we found these at Tractor Supply. They were these little terracotta pot herb gardens, windowsill herb gardens, and they each got one to take home. And I wasn't really sure. I was like, will they do it? Will they not do it? But it was so neat. The next time when they come back, like they were talking to each other and like, have you had any sprouts yet? Do you have any of your herbs yet? And some were working and some weren't. And I really feel like this, for me, was kind of a turning point with the group because there was probably 10 or 12 of those that consistently came every month. They were starting. It wasn't just they were coming to this as individuals. They were starting to become a group and forming kind of those bonds and that support from each other, which we were really trying to achieve. So that was kind of a neat aha moment for us to see them talking about that. We got into the summer months, so I wanted to talk stuff about vacationing. We did the slow cooker pulled chicken because it was around Memorial Day and the slaw. And I basically talked to them about all the ins and outs of food when it comes, and not necessarily vacation, but like going out and eating in restaurants. And we gave them tips and tricks on what to order, what not to order, omit this so you can have this, and all those different types of things. And we did, I came up with, it's called Dee Dee's Diner, which is really your diabetic diner is what that kind of stood for. And it had a bunch of different entrees on it and sides. And they were supposed to order off of the menu on what they thought would be the best option for them to eat. What they did not know was that I had actually pulled different menu items from restaurants that people frequent, from Wendy's, Olive Garden. I think there's a Cracker Barrel one that was on there. And so really anything that they ordered off of the menu was the best option for them at that restaurant. And so once they were aware of that, then I gave them kind of a handout that listed the restaurant that they went to, and then all the nutritional values of that actual meal so that they knew. They also received a fast food guide. I had one over here. Right here it is. It's a fast food guide, and these things are fantastic. I keep one on me. We got these from Positive Promotions, I believe, and it's a nutrition guide, and it literally lists, sorry, my office phone's ringing. It lists, like, I just opened it up, that's like Panera on there, and it lists all their menu items on there, and it tells you everything that you need to know about it. And there's like 50 different restaurants in there. So they each got one of these kind of little pocket thing they can keep in their purse, in their car. And it really gives you insight on what you think is the best thing for you really might not be when you actually have that nutritional information right in front of you as well. In June, we went with the vacationing again, but I did basically everything that wasn't food related. So we packed our suitcase. That was our visual for the night. And all the things that you should bring with you on vacation. We did a fish, which that one made me really nervous until it came out of the oven. I wasn't that sure it was going to turn out, but it did. We did the little brownie bites, which were I was told was much better than the rubber brownies were. And I just basically talked to them about all the things just to pack with them, stuff about their medications, like if they're flying, different things, like if they have an insulin pump or if they have a Dexcom, and not to walk through the metal detector because it can mess it up. Different things that I didn't even know until we started making this lesson. We did a card for them to fill out that we sent in for them. They all received I have a diabetes. It's a necklace, but something to keep on them. God forbid something happen when they're out somewhere and they have to go to a clinic or to a hospital, and that lets that facility know that they're diabetic, because they will be treated differently when they are there. Pulled straight from the CDC on this one, just the tips for traveling with diabetes. From your water bottles to good pair of shoes. That had the fast food guides and the carb on there, all the different things they needed. And I will point out here in the bottom, this just goes kind of back to the Christmas tree comment, that is me holding a string bikini in my hand. Did not wear that and will not ever wear that. But it was funny. I pulled it out of the suitcase and told them not to forget their string bikini. And of course, that was just the funniest thing, but it kept them engaged and it got them laughing. So, you'll hear me, you've heard me reiterate through all of this, is you've got to make it fun. That's how people retain stuff. It gets people wanting to come back, is to make it fun and to make it laugh, even if it's at my own expense. At the end, they got to go out into the raised beds. Things were growing, so they got to pick cucumbers. Up in the right hand, that's my girl Shirley, and I think that's possibly the biggest cucumber that I have ever seen come out of a garden. In July, we did food preservation. We taught them how to grow their stuff, so we wanted to let them know how to preserve it so they could eat it throughout the winter. We did a farmer's market bake for them, so we pulled kind of garden foods and what they ate for the night. This is just them doing their lessons. They learned things from dehydrating, freezing, some canning basics. And then Lakin, which is the FCS coordinator there at the extension office, she did pressure gauge checks. So anyone that had a pressure cooker, they knew about it the time before, and they could bring their gauges in, and she checked the pressure on them to make sure that they were at safe levels. And you can see, Markham Wallace provided a few door prizes for things that were food preservation related. And then, of course, once again, they got to pick from the garden and take some stuff home with them. And then we got to August, and it was our 1 year celebration. And I could not believe we were already at 1 year. to where we were at, and just kind of sitting back and was, kind of gotten my feels about it and where we had started to where we were. And it was really just for me, I wanted it to be a time of celebration. What better way to celebrate than to have a pizza party, right? So we did low carb tortilla pizzas. That's our pizza bar that we set up. So they all got the low carb tortillas and they could put their toppings on. And we made sure, of course, they were diabetic friendly. And then we baked them in the oven for them. It only took about 15 minutes to do. And these peanut butter cookies you've seen before, but hands down, those were everybody's favorite dessert. I actually had one of the members, I've always asked her, have you made the peanut butter cookies? She's like, no. She's like, because I will eat the entire batch if I make them. So we made them again that night so they could still have them and only eat one or two. And they were actually really good. It was more a night of celebrating. We really didn't have a lesson. We did free A1C checks again. They came and did, because we were at another 6-month mark. So they got their A1C checked, and we did a 1-year evaluation again. Probably my favorite picture of the year probably would be the one in the top right. And that's because you've heard me talk about Sam. That's Sam standing up there in the blue shirt with the suspenders on. He normally sits on the other side of the room. And at the beginning of the support group, it was, they would come in and they would sit down and we would do our lesson and they would leave. And it was almost like trying to pull them to get them to talk. Now I feel like I'm in a 3rd grade class when we're getting ready to start, because I'm like shushing them, don't be quiet. We got to get started, because they're talking to each other and they form those bonds with each other and they don't feel like they're alone in this journey with their diabetes. And I personally feel like if anything has come of this support group, them having other people to lean on and know that they're not alone is probably the biggest accomplishment that I feel like has come on my end of things. I can teach them all about their diabetes, but if they have other people around them as a support, not just once a month that they can have, I think it's fantastic. One of the other things that we did was, you can see the lady holding up in the bottom right, is diabetes dollars. We worked with our local farmers market. I worked with the local farmers market director, had a conversation with her. And so what we did was provided them each with 10 diabetes dollars. So each slip is worth $1. They can take it to our local farmers market, and we worked with the farmers that sell there. And they can use those slips just like money. They have to, of course, purchase fresh fruit and vegetables. They can't go over to the candy lady and use their diabetes dollars, but then they turn those in. And then I work with the lady that's over the farmers market, and the coalition actually reimburses that farmer for the produce that was purchased. And they've actually utilized these. We give these out here and there. We're kind of frugal with them, but just because for money reasons. But that's something that's getting the community involved, and it's a win-win for everybody, because the farmers are making money. They're getting business at the farmers market, but our participants are also getting fresh, healthy food for free as well. Yeah.
This is Sheila again. And we had a question in the chat box. And the question was, what is your budget for support for the support group and your resource for funding?
So when I came on to the coalition, in the bank, I want to say there was about $8,000 or $9,000. And I didn't really, I'll be honest with you, I'm not your money person. I have another lady that does that. But I honestly, I try to keep budgeting on for the coalition for what we spend at a maximum of $100 a month. We usually don't spend that much. I try to buy off-brand stuff. I'm not ashamed to say, hey, this is for the support group. You want to cut me a deal, or you want to, give me some donations. Having the extension office as a partner has been great because they have something called their SNAP program. So if there are certain things, and this is where Claudia comes in really handy, with their recipes that they have, because they have to be SNAP approved recipes through them, but we can use those, and then they actually purchase the food. And kind of what we've been doing with them is kind of going back and forth. So like the coalition will purchase the food one month and then they will. So that's worked out really well to offset that. Markham and Wallace, most of the giveaways and freebies that you see, our local hospital, the health department, the school systems that I have worked with have been the ones that's kind of in kind have donated those things. And we purchased, I think for the year, I looked back on the year for the just the Diabetes Coalition alone and we just did our 13th class last night. And I think we have spent around between $800 and $900. So I feel like with everything that we have done over a year, and like I said, and I will say it over, and community partners are key. Getting other people involved that have money too. You don't want anybody that's broke unless they, they'll come and help. But you know what I'm saying? Like you want to try to find people that are willing to do it because it is a costly thing, and especially if it's something that you want to continue. Inevitably, you want to make sure that funding is there. But that's I use a lot of partners there for a lot of that stuff.
And I think your partners make an investment too in their community. They're giving back to their community for one thing. Their employees most likely live there, so they're going to be healthier. So yeah, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah,
and
it really is.
Partners seriously is the key.
Yeah, it is. And I will say that. I'm sure you've heard me say it over and over, but that has what has been allowed us to make this support group so successful. If it was just the coalition itself, there is we could have done the classes, but it wouldn't have been quite as bougie, I guess you could say. Like it would have been a more run of the mill. You come in and you get the information and you go on, but all this extra being able to do a meal each time and for them to go home, and they rarely go home empty handed, without something, that comes from my partners. There's no way as a coalition, because we don't have like a yearly money that's coming in. We have this money, and unless another grant or something opens up that we apply for or we get, once it's gone, it's gone. So we try to be as frugal as we possibly can with the money that we have. So like I said, if it wasn't for those partners, I can assure you that it would not be near as good and near as successful that it has been.
Can you share I have a question for you. First, I just want to thank you because this has been an excellent presentation.
Thanks.
And it just seems like, you just really, from the ground up, just like, your title is, you really have built this program and you really thought ahead. I love the fact that, you made things really fun and engaging, and things were kind of themed, or season, like the vacationing and Dee Dee's Diner and, the bingo size and all the things that you put together in things like that. So I just want to thank you, and I love the fact that people that you did the evaluations too, because I think that's
been huge. But that's a huge, and it gives us. I was seeing what else I had on here. I know I had a couple more slides. Speaking of the evaluations, I feel like it's a way to make sure we're on the right track. And honestly, on the evaluations too, we ask them for suggestions. What do you want to learn? What would you like to do? Like, because you're the one that's a diabetic. And so what are you struggling with in your life, or something that you'd like to learn more about? So we get a lot of our ideas from them. And then a lot of times it's, it's one of Megan, who is my girl from Markham and Wallace. She's like, it's like we're throwing spaghetti at the wall and we just throw a bunch of it at the wall and we're just going to see what sticks, and there's just a lot of thinking out loud when we come to our coalition meetings. What do you think? And they're like, some of them are like, no, that's not a good idea. And then you get into, a situation. A prime example is last night we did, and I'll just go ahead and pull that slide up for our upcoming meetings. So we did Think Your Drink last night. So we talked about everything about what you drink and being diabetic. And one of the recipes, we did a taste testing for different things. And we did like a 0 sugar tea and a green tea. And then I found a recipe. It was a Splenda recipe for a hot chocolate, and which turned out really good. And so as we're cleaning up, we're talking about it. I was like, oh, we should use the hot chocolate, like later on, like when it gets cold. And then I said, oh, we could maybe do that at Christmas. And then it kind of turned into this. We're like, oh, for our Christmas meeting, let's do it like it's Christmas morning and ask them to wear their pajamas, and we'll do a breakfast kind of theme, and we can have the hot. So it's just like we just feed off of each other with these different ideas. But we always try to make it fun and something for them to look forward to. Like next month in October, we're going to have a fall festival. And we're going to have a few little games and stuff, and we'll talk about the candies and the carbs in them. But I told them last night, I said, I encourage you to dress up, even if it's putting little cat ears on or something, because our support group is going to be on the 26th. So it's right before Halloween. So, and I have some of them that's really into it. They're like, oh, I already know dress up I'm going to wear. And one was like, what do I get if I come? And I was like, well, we may have a best dressed. And so a lot of the stuff that you hear me say that we do, and you may scratch your head and say, well, what does this really have to do with diabetes? And some of it doesn't, but we always make sure that the core of it is diabetic related, and they're leaving and they're learning some of their diabetes. But like I said, you want them to have that camaraderie, and you want them to have a good time and enjoy coming, and then learn something from it too. I think that's the biggest takeaway from it, is just, you don't have to be so serious about things. You can make it fun, and you can still teach them something at the same time. And I can assure you that if someone is looking forward to coming to something, whether like, kids, when they go to school, if they're going to be in class all day, they're like, oh, I don't want to go to school. But when my daughter has a field trip and they get to go do something fun, but it's an educational thing, they're learning something, but it's fun to them, they want to go to those things. So it's kind of the same concept even with us as adults. Most of us work all day, and you're not going to want to go do something that you're just going to sit and you're going to have something else. Like you want them to look forward to what is to come. What is Kristin going to do tonight? And that's kind of a running joke. It's like, nobody knows what I'm going to pull out, what I'm going to put on, those type of things. So I always like to keep them guessing a little bit as well.
And Kristin, I think you answered this question, but we have several questions. One was, moving forward, will you continue to offer food each month? Because this particular lady doesn't have an oven at her facility.
Mm-hmm.
And then another question was, what's the average number of participants over the year per meeting? And then the last question is, do you think the same people will continue to come? And what will you do to have new people join? And then I have a question for you too, but I'll let you go ahead and answer those.
Yeah, because I was going to say, remember, I've got COVID brain. I can only remember so much.
I'm trying to remember them. I'm writing them down here too.
We do intend to have something, and not every month is a big full course meal. I mean, sometimes we just had a salad or a little thing. And, we've been fortunate that the extension office has a fantastic kitchen. One suggestion I was just trying to think if there was somewhere else that you could, like, things you could prepare. I know air fryers, those type of things, the convection ovens, to do.
And sometimes, I know we have a coalition here in West Virginia, and and they actually use hot plates.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really helpful. But you also, if you have too many of them, you have to worry about a breaker. That depends on the facility.
Yeah.
Because if you have a lot of little electrical appliances hooked up, you sometimes will
Yeah.
throw a breaker or something.
I'm very, very lucky. I have 2 ovens out of the extension office, so we'll have
Yes, you are.
2 going. I mean, so I've got a really, really ideal situation when it comes to cooking. So our intention is to, as long as we can, we've provided food. So I think if they rolled in and they didn't have anything to eat, they would probably maybe cut me up and cook me on the stove. I mean, I had a lady last night. We did the meal, Markham and Wallace did meal kits again. We did these little meatloaf cups, and there was one lady and she was trying, and we all know, I mean, like right now, I mean, the price of food and groceries is outrageous, and it's hard for people right now. I mean, I made the comment, I think the other day, I was like, I make more money now than I ever have, and I'm more broke than I've ever been. And that's just the times that we're living in, especially when it comes to food. And then we know that the healthier you eat, the more expensive it is, that's just a whole nother soapbox that we could get on about that. So, I mean, she just made a comment. She said, you don't know how much I appreciate this. I mean, there was a pound of meat in there. And of course, like I said, Markham and Wallace did all that. So, I mean, if you have somewhere, try to find your community outreaches within your healthcare systems, because they've got money. That they can provide those type of incentives that I never could with. But she was so appreciative. She says, you don't know how much this means. I mean, this is huge for me and for my family. She's had to go back to work part-time just to make ends meet. So, that's why I do try to provide the meals, because I know a lot of the people that come are on fixed incomes and things are tough. So if I can put something in their bellies and it's good for them at the same time, that's a win-win for me. Let's see. The next question. I know there was one about how many participants. So, in the beginning, we started out with 18. And that was pretty consistent and we had some fall off. We average about 12 right now. We have had some new ones join, and we have had some drop out, and we've had some that's been with us for the long haul. One thing with having Claudia, she has been providing MES classes, and so we actually picked up a couple of gentlemen that had attended her classes, and they have started coming to the support group. We have set up at our local farmers market, go to different events within the community, like the open houses at the schools. We'll do like a pre-diabetes assessment, and just have a table, and we'll give away, a few freebies, like a water bottle or something like that, to get them to come over. And then we kind of advertise about it to get them. So I try to get out into our communities with different things that are going on that may not necessarily be diabetes related, but you might have that one diabetic that you can talk about and get them to come to your support group. So our intention is to keep her going as long as we can continue to, the funds are there and the people are there and the ideas are there. This is something that's kind of, when we started it, I initiated it. So it's kind of become my baby. So it's like, I can't imagine not having my support group. We are actually right now, me and Claudia has been working with some other partners in the county over in Allison County. And our intention is we're trying to start a health coalition over there. And the goal is to maybe eventually start a support group in a county over. So we're trying to expand. I don't know if we're biting off more than we can chew. But we're working on that as well. So was there another?
Yeah, I had another question. So at the beginning of your presentation, you said you guys did like this mass call out that you did in regards to trying to get people to come on board. And then you put a lot of posters out, things like that. Do you continue to do that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or is this, have you found that you just have to continuously
We
market
do. Yeah.
support group?
Every month, like anybody. So we do a sign in, and it has, when they come to the support group, they sign in and we get their phone number and an email. And Lakin, who is she's out at the extension office, about 2 or 3 days before, she sends out a reminder. Because in the beginning, our initial was you needed to register to come. Because you wanted to know the numbers, because you're fixing food. And so if I'm going to have 20 people there and only fix for 12, that's but then you don't want to fix for 20 and only have 12 and then have, a bunch of leftovers left too. A lot of them do register, but we do the all calls. I do the flag. Now, am I as good about putting the flyers out throughout the community? No, because when you get busy and you just don't take the time. We have a bulletin board here at the health department. Always put it on. We always put it on all of our social media pages. I run the ads in the newspaper. We do that every month. Now, my newspaper allows me to run those ads for free because it's a community service. So we have two newspapers, and they've never charged me a dime for running the ads. So that's a good partnership that I have. So basically all I have in it is a little bit of paper and ink, and we make the flyers ourselves. But what I do, and we were actually talking last night, is because we want to try to get some of the people that haven't been coming for, they were coming for a while and haven't, and just kind of trying to reach out to them, because they all get the one call from the extension office, but maybe we're trying to reach out to them personally, because we have their numbers, we have their emails. So to just make that personal phone call and say, hey, we've missed you. We hope, you can start coming. This is when our next meeting is, just so they know that they're kind of thought about and maybe get back in their heads to come as well.
Great. We have another question. I love the idea about pre-registering. I think that's great. That's also, like you said, saves on cost.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Is there a particular time, like what time of day do you do this? Mm-hmm. And to follow up with that question I have is, did you ask folks to start with when a good time was for them?
Yes. Yep. So right now our meetings are on Tuesday nights at 6:00. And we last about an hour. Usually after about an hour, you've lost people. But in the beginning, when we were talking about, well, when should we do it? Like, you don't want to do things. We tried to steer clear of doing things during the day for those people that work. Mondays are just not a good day because you just want to get through the day on Monday. Then you have Wednesday night. We live in an area where a lot of people go to church on Wednesday nights, and then Friday nights, I don't want to do anything on Friday night. I'm usually the one on a Friday night, unless we have a ball game. I'm asleep by 8:00 on the couch because I'm killed from the week. So kind of Tuesdays and Thursdays, we kind of narrowed it down. So we were like, well, let's try it at 6:00 on a Tuesday and see what happens. So then once we got a couple of meetings in, we were like, so does this time work for you? No, let me correct myself. We were doing Thursdays, and we were like, does this time work for you? Do you all have any other preferences or anything? And we kind of did that on like in the beginning, not an evaluation, but like a sheet and we gave different time frames and stuff like that for them. And we actually ended up having a couple of ladies who their church service was on Thursday nights. And they said, we have to pick between going to church or coming to the support group. And I didn't call them out specifically by name or anything, but at that next support group, I was like, is anybody opposed to moving from Thursdays to Tuesdays? Because there's a couple of people that have been coming that have a conflict and really want to come, but they can't do it on Thursdays. And so everybody was like, well, yeah, that's fine. And so so we moved it to Tuesday. So that allowed a couple of our participants to come and not have to, pick and choose between the different things that they had going on.
Sounds great. Does anybody have any other questions or anything for Kristin? This has been great, Kristin.
Thank you.
We've had a lot of great comments.
I haven't got to read any of them yet. So, but yeah, I mean, I will say, I'm really proud of what it's become, and it couldn't have been done without all the people that I have had the help, the people that's been with me from the beginning with this. And, we are small, but it's a really good group of people that really care about the people in our community and really want to make a difference. And that has made all the difference in the world with, this crazy idea of doing this in each month on how we're going to sustain and how we're going to provide stuff. It always comes together, and it always seems like it's more than I could have thought that it was going to be from this. And that's just that is nothing to me. That is hats off to the people that I work with that contributed their time and their expertise into what we do.
Well, this has been great, and I think everybody has learned a lot. I've learned a lot.
And here is my, I'm glad you said that. This is my email and my direct phone. So if there's anything that you want to reach out to me about, or questions, or you started, or if I'm somewhere close, if you're in Eastern Kentucky, and I can come to you, or whatever I can do to help if somebody's interested in doing something like this, absolutely pick my brain. I may not have the answer, but I can assure you I'll find somebody that does.
Yes, and you guys can always reach out to me too, and I can put you in contact with Kristin and their great group. And I'll have it'll probably take probably sometime early next week. I'll have the recording link ready. It'll be cleaned up, and then I'll send out the PowerPoint and Kristin's information, and anything else that you can send by us. I was even, any other resources that you have, Kristin, if you want to shoot me an email, and I can just include that. And that
I will make sure for sure that I get the recipes where I pull my recipes.
Okay. And this has been awesome. I've got 5 after. Does anybody else have any other burning questions before we leave today?
Sheila, this is Susan Kincaid. I do not have a question. I just have a comment.
Yeah.
So whenever Kristin came on board at the health department, this was one of the very first things that she took on. And I knew that she was going to be perfect for it. And she's teared me up 2 or 3 times listening to her presentation. I just wanted to say I'm so proud of her. And thank you, Sheila, for everything you've done for Lee County for all the years that we've been a partner.
I love you guys. I truly do.
We love
you. Guys are amazing.
Oh, well, thanks, Sue.
Everybody's going to cry now.
Oh no!
I know. It's just been great. And Susan, you've supported this coalition since day one too. Mm-hmm. And hats off to you and to Vivian. So, you just great people, and there's something special about rural counties. Yeah. That's all I can say.
There is.
I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me and letting me present. It was definitely an honor.
Can I just say something? This is Alice Cottle. This has just been amazing for Susan and Kristin and Claudia. Claudia had been telling me how great it is. And I read your monthly reports and I'm like, wow, that this is amazing. I've listened to lots of ways to be creative with support groups. This is the best I've ever heard, and I'm getting old and have listened to a lot. You're definitely the glue. You all are really the glue to this. There has to, glue just to keeping your partners together and the people coming. You're adhesive, not just glue. Great job, and thank you both.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next month. Right. And I'll keep you guys posted. I'm just really very thankful. Thanks, Kristin.
Thanks so much. Y'all have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.